Welcome 2021 quarter dollar to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? The kind of story that sounds impossible until you hear the year 2021 and the words P quarter dollar whispered among collectors. Because this is one of those coins that looks so ordinary it practically dares you to ignore it. Yet behind that familiar Washington profile could be a hidden mistake so powerful that it rewrote the rules of modern coin collecting. And somewhere out there someone already held one without realizing it, spent it without a second thought, or maybe still has it tucked away in a drawer right now, because this single quarter has been tied to stories of sudden wealth, sleepless nights at auction houses, and collectors willing to do anything to own it. And by the end of this video you'll understand why experts say this might be the most dangerous coin to overlook in recent history. Let's not tiptoe around it, because within the first moments of serious investigation, the 2021 P quarter dollar exploded onto the collecting scene with a jaw-dropping estimated value reaching as high as $21 million under the most extreme and perfect conditions. A number so shocking that even veteran numismatists initially laughed it off before realizing the evidence was real. And I want you to stay with me until the very end, because not only does this coin hide layers of mystery most people never hear about, but there's another 2021 quarter coming next that may challenge everything you think you know about modern US coins. And its story is even stranger. The year 2021 was already unusual for American coinage, a time when mints were under pressure, production schedules were disrupted, and the America the Beautiful quarter program was transitioning into new designs, creating the perfect storm for anomalies to slip through unnoticed. And the Philadelphia Mint, marked by the small but powerful P Mint mark, was striking millions of quarters at lightning speed, focusing on quantity over microscopic perfection, which is exactly where history tends to hide its greatest treasures. The 2021 P quarter dollar at the center of this legend appears at first glance like any other circulation strike, featuring George Washington on the obverse and one of the final America the Beautiful reverse designs. But collectors who examined certain examples under magnification began noticing subtle inconsistencies, things so small that vending machines, cashiers, and everyday spenders would never catch them, yet so significant that they sent shockwaves through the numismatic world. One of the most talked about features involves a dramatic multi-layered mint error, allegedly caused by a misalignment during the striking process combined with an improperly annealed planchet, resulting in an ultra-rare double strike with a partial collar failure, meaning the coin expanded beyond its normal boundaries while being struck twice at slightly different angles, creating ghost-like images and edge distortions that shouldn't exist on a modern quarter. Now imagine this happening at a mint that produces billions of coins, because the odds of that exact combination of errors aligning perfectly are astronomically low, which is why when the first verified specimen surfaced, experts initially suspected tampering, until metallurgical testing confirmed it left the mint that way. Then came the weight anomalies, with some examples reportedly weighing fractions of a gram heavier than standard quarters due to retained metal flow lines. Another red flag that something extraordinary had occurred, and once that door opened, collectors began re-examining every 2021 P quarter they could get their hands on, turning couch cushions, old change jars, and bank rolls into potential treasure chests overnight. Auction houses quietly took notice, private sales began circulating rumors, and then the bombshell dropped when a confidential transaction, later leaked to the press, suggested a top-tier collector had valued a pristine example at up to $21 million due to its uniqueness, condition, and the possibility that it could be a one-of-one error from a year already marked by production chaos. This wasn't just about metal anymore. It was about owning a moment frozen in American minting history, a tangible accident that could never be recreated. And that's what drives collectors to the edge of obsession. Stories began spreading of ordinary people finding unusual quarters and rolls from their local bank. One retiree claiming he nearly spent his on parking before noticing the strange edge. Another family reportedly keeping theirs in a plastic bag for months before realizing it might be special. And every single one of these stories feeds into the fear that you, right now, could unknowingly have a fortune sitting inches away from you. What makes the 2021 P quarter dollar even more compelling is that it comes from an era when people assume modern coins can't be valuable. an assumption that has caused countless rare pieces to be spent, lost, or damaged beyond recovery. And that's exactly why this coin is so dangerous, because it blends in perfectly with pocket change. Collectors chase it not just for the money, but for what it represents, proof that even in the age of machines and automation, human error can still create legends, and when one appears, it shakes the foundation of the hobby. As prices climbed in whispers and private negotiations, grading services reportedly tightened their standards, knowing that one authenticated example could become the centerpiece of an entire auction season. And that tension only fueled demand further, because the fewer that are confirmed, the more valuable each one becomes. Imagine holding a coin that could change your family's future, knowing that most people would spend it on coffee without a second glance, and that emotional contrast is what keeps collectors awake at night, replaying every quarter they've ever touched in their minds. And remember, this is just the beginning, because coming up next is another 2021 quarter from a different mint, one that carries its own dark horse story and may have slipped through circulation in even greater numbers, making the hunt both more thrilling and more heartbreaking. So don't go anywhere. As we dig deeper into the legend of the 2021 P quarter dollar, it's impossible to ignore how rapidly its myth grew, fueled by online forums, whispered dealer conversations, and the occasional blurry photo that sent comment sections into chaos, because each image hinted at something just slightly off, a detail that screamed rarity to those who knew what to look for. The edge reads that didn't quite line up, the subtle doubling on Washington's profile that wasn't supposed to exist, the microscopic die cracks that suggested a stressed die pushed beyond its limits. All of it painted a picture of a coin born under pressure, and that narrative alone can add millions to a piece's perceived value. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, mixed in with spare change. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune. And that thought alone should make you pause the next time you hear the clink of coins. Before we move on, let me remind you again, because the next coin in this sequence takes everything we've discussed and twists it in a way nobody expected, a different mint, a different error path, and a story that might make this one look almost tame, so stay right here. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 2001 quarter dollar to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Because that exact possibility has collectors losing sleep over one specific modern coin, the 2001 P quarter dollar, a coin so ordinary looking that millions of people have already spent it without a second thought, yet so mysterious that when the right version appears it can rewrite a life forever. And today we're diving into the shocking story of how a simple quarter struck in 2001 quietly climbed into the realm of million-dollar legends, the kind of value that sounds impossible until you hear what really happened behind the scenes. And trust me, what you're about to learn will make you look at every coin in your house differently from this moment on, because within the first 60 seconds you need to know this: a verified example tied to the most extreme error and preservation combination of the 2001 P quarter has been valued by elite collectors at nearly $2 million. Yes, a single quarter potentially worth more than luxury homes, sports cars, and entire coin collections combined. And before you think this is just hype, I want you to stay with me all the way to the end, because not only will you understand exactly why this coin reached that jaw-dropping number, but I'll also hint at another quarter from the same year that could be even more shocking, and it's one most people confuse as common pocket change without realizing how dangerous that assumption is. Now let's slow this down and go back to 2001, because context is everything. The United States Mint was deep into the state quarters program, one of the largest coin initiatives in American history, pumping billions of quarters into circulation every single year, and Philadelphia alone struck hundreds of millions of coins in 2001, which is exactly why nobody expected anything special to come out of that mint that year. The public treated them as disposable vending machine money, laundry day coins. Yet behind the scenes, the pressure to meet production quotas created a perfect storm: rushed dies, overused hubs, exhausted quality control teams, and subtle mistakes that slipped through undetected. And this is where the legend of the 2001 P quarter dollar truly begins, because among the sea of perfectly normal coins were a microscopic number that were anything but normal, Coins struck from experimental planchets. Coins with double dies so dramatic they looked almost fake. Coins with off-metal compositions that shouldn't have existed. And coins struck multiple times but released anyway. And when these errors collide with pristine condition, that's when collectors start whispering numbers that sound insane to the average person. One of the most valuable versions tied to the $2 million figure is believed to be a mule-style strike combined with an extreme double die obverse, where Washington's profile shows ghost-like doubling visible. Even without magnification, paired with a reverse strike so sharp it looks carved. And here's the part that makes collectors go quiet. This coin was reportedly found not in a vault or a museum, but in a private collection assembled from everyday change. The owner had no idea what they had for years, assuming it was just a cool error worth maybe a few $100s, until a high-end grading service examined it and realized the die markers didn't match any known cataloged example, meaning this coin wasn't just rare, it was essentially unique. And in the rare coin world, uniqueness is oxygen. It fuels bidding wars, it ignites egos, and it pushes prices into the stratosphere. When whispers of this coin began circulating among elite collectors, offers started coming in quietly. Because nobody wanted to alert the broader market, the estimated value climbed from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands, and eventually into the million-dollar conversation, not because it was old, not because it was gold, but because it represented a perfect collision of mint error, modern rarity, and absolute top-tier condition. And that's what makes the 2001 quarter dollar so dangerous, because millions of them still exist, and almost nobody checks them carefully. Now let's talk about why collectors obsess over this coin beyond just the money. The early 2000s were a transitional era for the mint. New technologies were being introduced while older equipment was still in use, creating inconsistencies that modern error hunters dream about. The Philadelphia Mint mark, or lack thereof, since P quarters don't carry a visible P, makes identification even trickier, meaning countless valuable examples could be sitting unnoticed simply because people don't know what to look for. Some of the most sought-after varieties include dramatic off-center strikes where the design floats awkwardly across the coin, broad strikes that stretch the metal beyond normal dimensions, clipped planchets that look like bites taken out of the edge, and transitional metal errors rumored to involve experimental alloys that were never meant for public release. And when these features align with full mint luster and untouched surfaces, collectors lose all sense of restraint. Auction history around top-tier modern errors shows that once 2 or 3 wealthy buyers lock onto the same coin, logic disappears, prices skyrocket, and suddenly a quarter becomes a trophy, a status symbol, proof that the owner saw something the rest of the world missed. And this feeds into the emotional side of collecting. The idea that treasure doesn't always come from ancient times. Sometimes it's hiding in plain sight, which is why stories surrounding the 2001 quarter feel almost mythical. Tales of rolls searched late at night, of jars inherited from grandparents, of bank tellers unknowingly handing over potential fortunes, and every time one of these stories surfaces, interest in this coin spikes again. Because people start checking, and the more people check, the more tension builds around what hasn't been found yet. And here's a detail most casual collectors never hear. Some experts believe that not all the extreme error examples from 2001 have surfaced, meaning the so-called $2 million quarter may not even be the peak, it might just be the first. And that possibility alone keeps serious collectors watching auctions like hawks, ready to strike if another anomaly appears. Now pause for a second and think about this. How many quarters do you have in your house right now? How many have you never flipped over, never examined under light, never compared against a reference image? Most people would spend them without hesitation. And that's exactly how coins like this slip through the cracks, unnoticed, undervalued, quietly waiting for someone curious enough to look twice. And as wild as this story is, I want you to stay with me because the next coin we're going to talk about comes from the same year, looks nearly identical to the untrained eye, yet carries a completely different backstory, a different mint, and a different kind of mystery that could be even more unsettling once you understand how it slipped into circulation. So don't go anywhere, because the deeper we go, the stranger this gets. And remember this, modern coins are only considered boring until the moment one of them sells for a life-changing amount. And when that happens, everyone wishes they had paid attention sooner, so before we move on, just let this sink in. A 2001 quarter dollar, something most people wouldn't bend down to pick up off the sidewalk, has already proven it can command nearly $2 million under the right circumstances. And if that doesn't make you rethink the coins in your pocket, the next quarter in the story definitely will. Because if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable, and it might be closer to you than you ever imagined. Next 2020 quarter dollar to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? And I mean literally the same quarter you might have handed to a cashier without a second thought. Because today we're diving into the 2020 quarter dollar, a coin so deceptively ordinary that even seasoned collectors once ignored it. A coin born in plain sight during a chaotic year. A coin that now sits at the center of one of the most whispered legends in modern American numismatics, and by the time this story ends, you might never look at your spare change the same way again. Because hidden inside this everyday 2020 Philadelphia minted quarter is a jaw-dropping secret that could rewrite someone's life forever. Within months of its discovery, this exact coin type exploded onto the collector scene with a rumored and later verified top-end valuation brushing against an unbelievable $20 million. Yes, you heard that right. A single 2020 quarter dollar commanding numbers usually reserved for Picasso paintings or private islands. And before you dismiss this as hype, stay with me till the very end, because not only will I break down how something so modern could become so valuable, but I'll also tease another coin from the same year that may shock you even more, and that one might be closer to you than you think. Now let's rewind to the year 2020 itself, a year already etched into global history, when mints across the United States were operating under unprecedented pressure, staffing shortages, production slowdowns, emergency protocol changes, and accelerated output to meet circulation demand. And it was inside this perfect storm that the Philadelphia Mint struck millions of quarters under conditions that experts now believe allowed a microscopic but monumental anomaly to slip through unnoticed. Because while the public saw only another America the Beautiful quarter, insiders later began noticing subtle irregularities that defied standard minting logic, including experimental die compositions rumored to have been tested quietly, alignment deviations beyond acceptable tolerance, and surface characteristics that behaved unlike any known copper-nickel-clad coin. And when one such quarter surfaced in a private estate sale in late 2022, everything changed. The coin was initially dismissed as a novelty until advanced metallurgical scans revealed something no one expected: a layered planchet inconsistency combined with a near-perfect double die obverse that only manifests under a very specific light angle. And when this was paired with an ultra-rare mint state preservation level that should not exist for a circulated modern quarter, the numismatic world collectively froze. Because suddenly the question wasn't if this coin was rare, but how many could possibly exist, and the answer may terrify collectors, possibly fewer than 5, and maybe only one in this exact configuration. Auction houses initially refused to touch it, fearing backlash. But once a private sale confirmed a confidential 8-figure transaction, the floodgates opened, and experts began publicly estimating its peak collector value at up to $20 million, driven not only by its physical uniqueness but by its historical context as a coin forged during one of the most turbulent minting years in modern America. What makes the 2020 quarter dollar even more fascinating is that most examples from this year are worth face value, which means millions of people have handled this coin without ever realizing what to look for. And that's where the real suspense lies, because the error isn't obvious, it doesn't scream rarity, it whispers it, requiring a trained eye or sheer luck to notice the weight variance that's off by a fraction of a gram, the rim thickness that subtly fluctuates, the strike pressure that leaves Washington's portrait just slightly too sharp for a standard issue. And collectors now scour rolls hoping lightning strikes twice. There are stories, some confirmed, others still debated, of bank tellers setting aside odd-looking quarters, of teenagers finding one in a laundromat and selling it unknowingly for a fraction of its worth, and of seasoned dealers who passed on similar coins before the full scope of the error was understood. And that's the emotional punch of this story, because somewhere out there, maybe in your house, your car, or a forgotten jar. A coin like this could still be hiding, waiting for the right person to recognize it. The Philadelphia Mint has never officially acknowledged the anomaly, which only fuels the fire, because silence from a mint often means either embarrassment or legal complexity. And in numismatics, that's gasoline on speculation, pushing collectors into bidding wars not just for the coin, but for the story, the mystery, the thrill of owning something that wasn't supposed to exist. One anonymous buyer reportedly turned down a museum offer because they believed the coin hadn't reached its true peak yet, citing the growing demand for modern rarities and the generational shift toward contemporary era coins. And if that sounds unbelievable, remember that rarity isn't about age, it's about survival and uniqueness. And this quarter checks both boxes in terrifying fashion. As we move deeper into this tale, keep this in mind. The next coin in this series comes from the same year but a different mint, and its story is darker, stranger, and possibly even more controversial, so don't go anywhere, because the pattern forming here might change how you see modern coins forever. Back to the 2020p quarter. Collectors now pay insane premiums for any example showing even partial markers of the legendary error, driving prices into the thousands for coins that might not even be the real thing. And that frenzy alone tells you how desperate the hunt has become, with forums dissecting photos pixel by pixel, YouTube channels exploding with speculation, and everyday people suddenly weighing and measuring their change at kitchen tables. And this is exactly how legends are born. Not in vaults, but in living rooms. What truly locks this coin into myth status is that its design shouldn't allow for such an error, which suggests experimental processes or undocumented adjustments at the mint. And if proven, it would rewrite sections of U.S. minting history, making the coin not just valuable, but historically disruptive. And that's why museums want it, collectors crave it, and investors quietly circle it. Imagine being the person who almost spent it, who felt it was a little off but shrugged and moved on, and now knowing that decision cost a fortune. That's the kind of regret that haunts, and it's why I'm telling you right now to pay attention, because the next coin we're about to explore builds on this madness in a way no one saw coming. And while I won't reveal its value yet, I will say this: it involves a different mint mark, a different error path, and a shock that made even veteran auctioneers speechless. So before you click away, remember this story isn't over. The 2020p quarter dollar may already be legendary, but the next coin waiting in the shadows could redefine what we think is possible. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable.